Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for a special edition of 9 on Your Side, Hope After Hate. I'm Tanya O'Rourke. We are devoting the next half hour to one topic. It's not an easy one to watch. It is about hatred and bigotry and murder and ultimately hope. It's also about the past, but also about what's happening in our world today. Hagit Lamor was our longtime I-Team reporter from 1994 to 2012. Recently, she used those skills to investigate something personal, a dark chapter in her family history. What she found took her across the world for a lesson that resonates right here at home. Hagit?
This started with a question a lot of people are pondering right now, a question from my own son. Why are people so hateful these days against anyone they see as different? It made me realize that much of what we're seeing today follows a powerful playbook from the past, my father's past. So I had to go back to travel to the homeland my dad left in a cattle car train 75 years ago on the way to a concentration camp. I had to uncover his Holocaust journey to understand what to say to my own son now.
Oh my goodness. Up these steps.
Yes.
Behind this door.
Be really careful.
Lies the hiding place.
This was where it happened.
The attic I've heard about my whole life.
This is where they hid.
I've come here to see for myself what happened, why, and could it happen again? Częstochowa, Poland is a 13th century village all grown up. A wide walking path winds through the main alea, postcard picture perfect. This is my father's hometown. I wish I could show you family photos, but they disappeared, along with almost the entire Jewish population here, more than 30,000 people murdered.
Lang und rank sein. Flink wie Windhunde.
It started with words.
Keinem etwas zu leiden.
Words that spread hatred. Hatred that spread through media, in articles and political cartoons, to the streets of Częstochowa. And now I've come back to my father's hometown and to the building where he grew up. Through a stone arch above a large courtyard, my grandfather Hirsch built from scratch a shoe factory next to spacious living quarters. Until one day, the Nazis took it all away.
Hi. Hello. Nice to meet you.
The current tenants let us in.
Thank you. Dziękuję. I had no idea it was this large.
Recently renovated into small shops and artists' lofts.
It's changed, but it's still grand.
And one huge surprise.
They sell shoes here now. This was a shoe factory, and now they sell shoes here.
The old stories come to life. Dad told me how he used to look below from this balcony.
This is the square where the selections took place, where the man in charge of getting rid of all the Jews in Częstochowa, his name was Degenhardt. He came here, and all the Jews would be lined up here, and half would be told to go to the right, and the others would be told to go to the left. And one way was to life, and one way was to death. And it all happened right here.
But before the selections, the Nazis already had killed my grandfather. His funeral was one of the last formal wartime burials in the Jewish cemetery 5 miles from town.
They walked all the way from Częstochowa carrying a casket. It was my grandfather's casket.
I came to look for his grave. But it was lost to time. Vandals and vines have ravaged the tombs.
One były malowane na złoto te litery.
But then another surprise. No one in my family today knew, but
this is where my great-grandmother lies. To find her gravestone, which no one had visited for 80 years.
I brought a stone to lay somewhere on my journey. This was the place.
This one comes all the way from Cincinnati, from the Holocaust and Humanities Center. Saying a prayer at her grave I think, was an appropriate place for everyone else who died, whose graves I will never find, who have no graves, who died in ovens or gas chambers or on cattle car trains. I can never say a prayer to them at their graves, but that grave can stand for all of them.
Among those whose graves I'll never find, my grandmother and uncle, which brings us to that attic.
This was where it happened.
This is where they hid with my father.
To stand in that attic and just imagine listening to the boots of the Nazi soldiers outside while they hid quietly in that dark.
And this is where his mother arranged for him to be smuggled out of the ghetto.
He didn't know it was the last time he would ever see her. A few days later, the Nazis came up and they found this hiding place and they took them away on the last transport.
They ended up here, the Treblinka death camp.
They came on train tracks that were along this route, and when they got off, they had no idea that in hours, their lives were over. Right back there are ashes of bodies, of humanity, of culture, of a whole people that are no more. It's beyond comprehension.
Today, the gas chambers and ovens are gone, replaced by thousands of stones marking the victims' hometowns.
It was a way to say goodbye to my grandmother I never met.
But even in death, she had saved my father's life. Now 11, Dad hid in a series of spaces in the small ghetto.
It was a horrible place, and there's no food. They hid in attics or underneath floorboards.
Until the final liquidation of the Jewish ghetto. On this square, my father lost the lottery of the last selection with a group of other children.
They were marked for death. They were about to get on a truck and go to the cemetery and be shot. And a Nazi saved their lives.
He had children Dad's age. He took this group of kids to a factory called Hasag, where the last surviving Jews of Czestochowa lived and worked as slaves.
They worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, cleaning and refurbishing armaments for the Nazis in this building.
Here, my father slowly starved for the next 18 months. Harsh as it was, there's a story I heard my whole life I just had to see. One of Dad's jobs was to care for the Kampmeister's flock of geese.
And he was allowed to walk outside of what was the gates to a stream, and he would lie down on the grass and look up at the sky, the blue sky, and imagine that he was free. I want to see the spot where that happened. If the stream is still there, it is. It's there. Oh my gosh. I just could feel him sitting there looking at that sky, lying back in the grass and thinking, oh, this is what it's like to be free.
And then I called halfway round the world. It was a moment I had to share with my dad.
Oh, Abba, I love you so much. I'm so proud of you, so proud of what you survived.
I am so glad to have you.
I love you.
I love you.
Walking freely where he was a slave, I rounded the corner to see the train tracks where Nazis loaded Dad on a cattle car train bound for Germany one day before Russian troops liberated this camp. He would spend the next 9 months in the worst place yet.
This was the last leg of the journey, last leg of the Holocaust journey here at Buchenwald.
He stepped out here to snarling dogs and armed Nazi guards. He was 13 and alone. I walk the same road now as he did then. And finally, around the corner, there's the famous gate I've seen only in photos.
He said he looked up, and the words were, "To each what he deserves," and he was wondering what he had done to deserve any of this.
It's a massive place, still, even with the barracks destroyed. But don't let that enormity dwarf the lesson here.
It's one thing for people to study history and to be places, but it's another to know a person was here. A person got off the train here, and a person walked through that gate and experienced that horror. It wasn't just an anonymous sea of people. It was one human being.
Behind this barbed wire fence, my father spent 9 months under the watchtowers, 9 months of starvation and sickness, most of it in a building on this very footprint.
This is where it all ended. He was here when the American army approached, and he knew he was liberated, he was free, he had survived.
Decades later, his daughter finally understands perseverance in the face of adversity.
Unfortunately, this is a theme of humanity that periodically we come into times when hatred seems to win the day, but it can't. We can't allow that. We have to fight it wherever it is. So to me, this is a journey to get my son's generation to stand up and fight. You can fight too. I followed in my father's footsteps so that I could pass on the lessons of this sad legacy, to turn hate into hope, to empower generations today and tomorrow. And that is why I'm working on an educational project based on my father's story to fight bigotry wherever you find it right now. Monyek's legacy is an immersive audience experience that uses projections and virtual reality. I hope to get it into schools and community groups so that if they want to talk about these issues, they have a way to do it. And you can find out a whole lot more about this on a special page that is on WCPO.com, Hope After Hate.
It is extraordinary what we just witnessed, what you got to experience, but you're not going to do this alone, right?
Absolutely not. There's so many people, so many wonderful partners working on this, like the Nancy and David Wolf Holocaust and Humanity Center at Union Terminal and the University of Cincinnati, CCM Harmony Fund, and of course we're hoping that some of the people watching right now will join us.
All right, so we're going to have more on that, plus some UC students getting in on the act a little later on, but still to come.
There were more than 200 people in my father's family at the beginning of the Holocaust. Maybe 5 survived.
The killing field Hagit found and the story of what happened there. You're watching Hope After Hate.
Thank you, honey.
Welcome back to this special edition of 9 on Your Side, Hope After Hate. You've been watching former I-Team reporter Hagit Lamor uncover her father's Holocaust journey nearly 80 years ago. Inspired by his story of survival, Hagit set out to create Monyek's legacy, an educational project to fight bigotry today. She joins me now. Hagit, why? Why now? Why do this project?
Because people today feel so powerless. It seems like people are seeing images and hearing things and they want to know what to do and they don't know what it is. So this project is all about empowering people to stand up. I feel in many ways, Tanya, like I'm sandwiched between 2 generations. There's my son's generation that we talked about, my students at the University of Cincinnati, and then there's my father's generation. He has Alzheimer's now. He can't tell his story anymore.
I'm so glad you knew it prior to.
Right. And I think in many ways it's almost like the world has Alzheimer's now. The world isn't remembering what happened not so long ago and repeating some of the same mistakes.
So we saw in that piece that you found that overgrown cemetery with long lost family graves, but it wasn't your only discovery.
No.
Please tell us about the killing field.
Oh my gosh, it was such an eerie place. It was crazy. It's right in the center of town. And basically right now it looks just like a lawn, but underneath what you're seeing there, are 2,000 children, women, and men, where Nazi soldiers corralled them and then gunned them down right there. They were families, neighbors, and they were guilty of one crime. They were Jewish. But you know, you don't have to go to Poland or Germany to see and learn about all of this. The new Holocaust and Humanity Museum at Union Terminal, it is world class. It's amazing, it's interactive, and just like this project, it is not just about history, it's about the present, and it's about what each of us can do to fight bigotry today. I would recommend anyone, if you have kids or if you're an adult, it doesn't matter, you should go and see this museum. It helps you to find where you want to act. It's not just about anti-Semitism.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. This is not just about anti-Semitism, it's about the world, it's about people.
Right, because unfortunately we see so many groups right now that are targeted, and so people may want to act against bigotry of all kinds. That's what both this project and that museum are about.
So as we mentioned, Hagit is not doing this alone.
Nope.
Coming up next, how University of Cincinnati students are helping share her father's story. You're watching Hope After Hate. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone, to Hope After Hate. Hagit and I are now joined by John Harrison, the founder of the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music's Harmony Fund. That program supports artistic works that fight hate and prejudice through the performing arts. John, thanks so much for being with us. Why is the fund supporting Monique's legacy?
Isn't this possibly the ultimate of what we're about? I love this Hope After Hate. It says everything. It says everything we represent. And I was talking earlier about the fact that I was born in 1940. I'm a war baby. And in my early years, I can remember after the war, it started with just heroism and everything was about the excitement of the war as a young person. But through the formative years, suddenly you started to hear about the horror and what this all represented. And I think at that point, we weren't even aware of the enormity of it. So it's very exciting to have somebody doing history and an emotional piece about this to take back to young people who haven't experienced it in any way whatsoever. So for us as Harmony Fund, this is an extraordinary gift Hagit's giving to us.
And it's a great gift you're giving to her as well. So in October, Hagit, a group of 15 UC students are going to Germany and to Poland to shoot, hopefully, most of this project. We just kind of have a big giant tease here for all of you.
I know.
And students from all over the college, history, political science, journalism, geography, international affairs,
They're all going to go there. They're going to see all of the places that you saw in this story, as well as we're also going to take them to Auschwitz, which is a preserved concentration camp where they can see the machinery of hate. They can see how it rose, and hopefully they can see how it ended, because that's what this is all about. This is about fighting bigotry and hatred right now, right here. It is not just about the past and just about history.
We have to keep reminding everyone what happened, right? We must keep this alive.
And it's something that I think a lot of people are looking for right now. As I said earlier, people are feeling like they want to do something. This is going to be a vehicle to get into schools. This project will ultimately end up helping teachers who want to talk about this, teach this to their students. It will help community groups who want to talk about these topics. The project itself is going to be immersive. You'll be inside the places you saw. You'll be at the square where the selections are taking place. You'll feel like you're right in it. That's what this project is going to do.
It's a big project, and there's no one better to do it than you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this, and we thank all of you for joining us for this very special edition of 9 on Your Side. We want you to know that you can watch our streaming coverage of this program on Roku, on Amazon Fire TV, and on Apple TV. We'll also put a shorter version up on our website. Of course, that's WCPO.com. Hope After Hate. Keep talking about it. Keep having that hope. Good night, everyone.
Of course, everybody had over there a number. My number was 11498. I remember today because you had to remember the number. If you didn't remember the number, you could get killed for it.
To me, what this project is all about is not about the death and the anti-Semitism and the ugliness. This project is about hope. This project is about learning so that no matter what people are persecuted, we learn to stand up and say no.